friend of mine. It's so funny how we met. She's the reason why I be telling y'all I'm a spiritual psychologist, even though I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
psychologist. I ain't because she's a psychologist. She's the real deal Holyfield, and she's
Mm-hmm.
also the reality of how interchangeably health and wellness and practical medicine merge together. And that's one of the things that we have within our community in Healing in Black and our spiritual side of our soul tribe. So it is my honor and a privilege to welcome you to get to know my sister. Okay, she's my sister. She my
Yes.
sister cousin. Dr. Abina Berry. She is the clinical psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
licensed therapist, because I
Mm-hmm.
was getting that wrong before, who specializes in all kinds of things. She's going to share with you all of those things that she specializes in. So please welcome Miss Abina Berry, Dr. Abina Berry.
Hi,
Yay!
everybody. Thank you for the great introduction, NaKeesha. Yes,
Of
as
course.
Marcia said, I'm Dr. Bina Berry. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and entrepreneur and author and speaker. A few things. I currently work in private practice and I work with the whole spectrum in terms of age and different presenting concerns that people can have. But primarily right now, since I'm working virtually, fully remote, I've transitioned to mostly working with adults, which I have loved and truly enjoyed. And specifically, a lot of the presenting concerns that I see are around trauma, authenticity, and identity. Working with neurodivergent folks to help them continue to thrive, as well as sometimes dealing with psychosis and other more maybe intense mental health things. I think I said mood disorders, but if I forgot to say that, also depression, anxiety, and all of that. So very much so trained as a generalist and do wear a lot of hats.
As we do.
Mhm.
Like I said, this is a beautiful merge. I think this is the perfect example of how we connect healing, the natural form of healing, what we consider natural or traditional form of healing with Western medicine.
Yes.
This is what our community is about. So I am so very thankful to have you in this group and in this community and in our panel. Now, we're not going to talk about the questions real quick. I want people to
Okay.
understand who you are as a person outside of the
Mhm.
doctor side of things. Your mom, your wife, parenting is
Mhm.
challenging, and how do you address those things as you are as Abina and a Dr. Abina Berry?
Mhm. Yeah, so just basically like that work-life balance is what you're
Yeah,
asking?
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have the privilege right now of making my own work schedule, so that really helps. And I'm in the process of continuing to transition that into exactly what I want it to be. But right now I work 4 days a week and seeing about 30 therapy clients. And so, work time is like, work time. I'm zoned in. I'm Dr. Berry at that time. I'm doing what I have to do to help and support people who are relying on me and coming to me for guidance around how their brains work and how they can improve their lives and their relationship with their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And outside of that, I very much so value my personal life, right? And nurturing all of my relationships. Like you said, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a friend, and I also am a sister and all of these other things, a daughter. And I'm also in a relationship with myself. So everything starts there for me. I think it's really important that we remember that our relationship with ourselves. I often teach my clients that, like, the analogy of kind of this tree, and that understanding that your relationship with yourself is the roots of that tree. So the more that you tend to the roots, then the tree can thrive. And these other relationships, which are kind of like the branches of the tree, can really experience that quality of the relationship you are creating with yourself. So I really try to nurture my relationship with myself and take good care of myself mentally, physically, and every aspect of what it means to be human. And really taking time to be invested in and nurturing my relationships with the people who matter the most to me.
And I happen to be one of them.
You happen to be one of them. You absolutely do.
I
So you
love
know you
that.
get to experience it.
Mhm. And because of this dynamic that we've encountered through our friendship, um, You have helped me with the topic of today, helped me
Yeah.
with a lot of my grieving issues, especially with the grieving of the loss of my old life to my new life,
Yeah.
as a mom, as a daughter, on both sides, on both ends. You have unintentionally and intentionally helped me through that process and understanding where it affects me as a person, not let alone
Hmm.
a black person, but as a person. So the
Hmm.
topic of today is grieving while black, a psychologist's guide to healing in a world of constant loss. We
Yeah.
understand that, we get where it comes from, um, and I'm so excited to dive in deeper with you in this subject.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to you, Dr. Berry, we often hear the terms disenfranchised grief. How does that grief experienced by Black and Brown communities, from police violence to COVID losses to the constant stress of racism, often go unrecognized and unvalidated by mainstream society?
Yeah. So there's so much to unpack with that. But what I would say is that, like, because we are still in a time where people are not really grasping, and I mean as a whole, I do think we're closer than ever, but people are not still grasping that mental health is your brain. Like, they're not understanding what that really means. So it means that it is at the foundation of everything that's happening within the world, in our interactions with one another, in our relationship with ourselves. And so, because of that, there's been historically horrific things, especially that have occurred with people of color, the Black community, all of that. And because we're still recovering from those things, and a lot of people have been conditioned from their own trauma to think that the way that you recover from horrific things is to not talk about them, to brush them under the rug, to get over it, but that's not how our brains actually work. The brain doesn't do get over it, right? And when you
Mhm.
suppress, it's just building up within you. And so, because we're still in a society where there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable talking about racism and other forms of hate and hate crimes, it's kind of still allowing for these things to exist without there being enough upset about it, without there being
Mhm.
enough fighting against it. People are very susceptible to groupthink, so which that is when you like have someone who's kind of following somebody else's kind of beliefs, and it kind of pulls them to more extremes. And because humans have a desire to belong, unfortunately that can fuel things like hate, and because then you other
Mhm.
people, right? And you're like, my group is better than this group, or this group is less than. And so we just as a society are still not in a place where enough people understand that we are all deeply connected to one another, and that diversity is really important. And so it's getting in the way of the people of color and the Black community being able to really be seen for the humans that they are, be seen for the traumas that they've endured, and understanding that these things are not being brought up because people can't get over it. They're being brought up because they are still occurring and happening and affecting us in real time. And so, if you want to get to a place where we don't have to talk about racism as much, let's address racism, right? Like, let's address the impact that this is having on people and causing them to go through a profound amount of grief, right? Grief shows up anytime we're experiencing loss. People are losing opportunities because of things like racism. People are losing housing. People are losing all kinds of stuff. So it's showing up in a lot of different ways.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, Now, what is collective grief? Like,
Mhm.
and why is it so important to name it, especially because you touched on that briefly, especially for communities that have continuously or are continuously facing this trauma on top of trauma, as you were leading to, without the chance to heal?
Yeah.
How would you address that?
Yeah, so collective grief, right, goes back to the fact that we're all connected. And then when we
Hmm.
share certain identities, right, that creates a unique connection.
Hmm.
And so because there is the generational traumas that are occurring, and things that people are still working through, whether they realize it or not, it's like it's on your to-do list, even if you're not dealing with it, because like it's not going to just go away magically. So because of that collective, the grief that's happening, if people are not nurturing their emotional intelligence and emotional regulation skills and things like empathy, especially, it gets in the way of us actually doing. You've heard me say this. I said in my book, like humaning well together. That's the way that I describe what we're supposed to be doing. So it means being deeply connected to our emotion and learning about it so that we can deeply support and connect to one another and ourselves. Right. And so
Mhm.
if I could wave a magic wand and everybody all of a sudden had high levels of emotional intelligence, collective grief would allow for us to truly move through really difficult emotion in community. It would allow for people to have safe spaces. But, we still have, I see this, I hear this and see this constantly. There's even something as simple as people see someone crying and they say, don't cry, which is a rejection, right? You're rejecting that person. You're not allowing them to have a safe space to feel. And then you're perpetually teaching them to suppress, which we already know scientifically is harmful. And I don't blame people for it because I know that it's just their conditioning. That's what
Mhm.
people said to them. So it's kind of like when you ask somebody, how are you? Right. And they say, I'm fine. And it's like, did you even think and check in with yourself? Or are you just telling me your robotic kind of conditioned response to that question? And so the same kind of thing is happening when people are seeing people express emotion, and it's getting in the way of us actually, dealing with grief properly. It is one of the most difficult emotions, and it is one of the emotions that require the most community and connection. Yet we still have people who are so uncomfortable with emotion because of unresolved trauma. So it's causing unnecessary levels of suffering, so it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, not allowing ourselves to have that place of vulnerability. We all
Hmm.
need a spot where we can be vulnerable, share our feelings. And if we
Yes.
don't have that, then we're going against nature in all essence. In
Yes,
all
you are
we're going
fighting
against
against your
nature.
biology. That's yes. Like you are literally fighting against your own biology and your needs. Yeah,
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
like your stomach growling and you being like, "Nope, I refuse to eat. I refuse to do that. I'm
I
not
don't need
drinking any
it.
water." And
Mm-mm.
it's like, "Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We all need it." Uh, preach,
And
sis. Preach.
as you always say, everything is a nuance. So
And I love the word nuance because everything is so nuanced. It's complex.
okay. So when you
Mhm.
follow her and when you follow her and connect with her inside of our hub and all the other places that you can find her, you will hear her say that often. And it pertains to the community development. Once we take down all of the scales and the things that surround us that makes us so different, once we take those things out of the picture, we realize that, as she said, we're all interconnected. And that has been
Mhm.
the growing theme throughout all of the practitioners that I've
Mhm.
interviewed with thus far. No
Oh
matter
wow, good.
what we
Yeah.
are, yeah,
Mhm.
it's beautiful. No matter what we've
Mhm.
gone through, no matter what we're dealing with, collectively, we're still
We're still
the
connected.
same.
And that
We're
diversity
still
is meant to
connected.
be celebrated and
Yep,
exciting, right? That authenticity and the uniqueness of each of us.
absolutely. I'm so loving this. Okay, now when it comes down to Western therapy, okay, we're gonna talk about that. When it comes down to Western therapy, often it's often focuses on the individual, but our pain is often communal.
Yeah.
What does a psychologically informed framework for collective healing look like, and how do we grieve together, in your opinion?
Yeah. So yes, of course, individual therapy is like kind of a staple of
Hold on. Sorry, my mic went out, and
okay.
I'm setting myself up
That's
so
why
I
I
can.
heard a shift. So that
Yeah,
yeah. I can still hear you good, but
this
these
is
mics be getting these mics be getting on your nerves.
girl,
Always giving you a hard time.
girl. Like, let me be great. Okay, give me 1 second, Abina. I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Okay. Do I need to do anything?
No, you
Okay.
stay on
Okay.
because I don't want you to hear the feedback. You're gonna hear feedback.
I don't hear any feedback.
You don't?
No.
All right, bet.
It
Well,
sounds
then we'll
fine.
keep going. I can
Yeah, it
barely
sounds fine.
hear you, but no.
You can barely hear me?
Yeah, that's not you. That's on me. That's
Okay.
my stuff. But I can hear you. I'm just gonna listen. But as
Okay.
long as you don't hear feedback, we're good.
Nope, I don't
All
hear
right,
feedback.
awesome.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep going.
Okay.
I think it started over. I'm gonna just piece these two together. I don't know how to. Whatever. Um, what was that? Okay, got it. Uh, let's start over here. And you can hear me.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, good. I don't know why I started over. That sucks. Um, Western therapy often focuses on the individual, but our pain is often communal. What
Mhm.
does a psychologically informed framework for collective healing look like, and how do we grieve together, Dr. Abina?
Yeah. So a lot of obviously individual therapy is a very common form of therapy, right? And it's important. We do need to have those individual spaces, but we also have group therapy. So I've in the
Mhm.
past run groups prior to becoming fully remote. I loved doing group therapy. So that's one of the ways that you can community like in community heal, because usually group therapy settings there is a common theme or presenting theme. So if it is a group therapy on grief, right, then people are able to have that community in that way. I do think that there is so much value in the different like types of therapies. Even family therapy or couples therapy is technically a type of community therapy, right? It's
Okay.
your relationship, but still, it's more than just you in that therapy space. So we do have forms of that that are occurring, but I do agree with you that it would be nice to have even more of that, that to be more
Mhm.
widespread and common for people to attend. I do think that one of the ways that we kind of see this happening regularly, even though it's not the same as traditional therapy, would be like when people have wellness retreats or things like that, because that's allowing for that. And if the person running the wellness retreat happens to be a psychologist or therapist, then it's going to maybe even more kind of look like what therapy would look like. But still, nonetheless, I think people coming together in a safe space to discuss feelings, thoughts, experiences, so they can keep moving through the grief or whatever else it may be is really important. And so we should continue to implement that. But we also have to deal with the stigma, and shame that people already feel, because it's one thing to ask somebody to go to individual
Yeah.
therapy, and now you're telling them to go, so it's
Let's go
because
to
I
group
know
therapy.
firsthand. Yeah, I know firsthand when I used to run group, I would have to do so much marketing of it, like, and convincing people like, hey, nobody's judging you there. You're literally coming to a space with people who are there for the same reason. So
Yeah.
they're happy you're there and they want to connect with you, but people would be very hesitant, and understandably so, just because we still
Mhm.
have a lot of healing and unlearning to do around what therapy is and the importance of it.
And since we're talking about a communal space where people can come with like-minded individuals without any judgment, I would love for you as our listener and viewer to check the links below and join in into our communities. Our
Mhm.
communities are virtual, and this way you can talk to Dr. Berry like directly. You can connect with her in the classes and the offers that she has when it comes down to the community as a whole. If she has classes, you'll be one of the first people to be a part of this class and obtain this knowledge with other people who are seeking this information. So I would
Mhm.
love for you to like subscribe and join into what we're doing collectively within our communities, Soul Tribe and Healing in Black. Now, with
Mhm.
that being said, many are suffering from what is called bereavement overload, losing so many people we don't even know where to start. COVID, the pandemic,
Yeah.
was definitely one of those things. What are the signs that someone is overwhelmed by cumulative grief? And what is the first step towards processing it?
So a clear sign can often, just in general, for feeling overwhelmed, be like shutting down, numbness,
Mhm.
just feeling like almost like a shell of yourself. and not really
Mhm.
knowing where to start addressing what's there, or maybe even not being able to identify anymore because as kind of a coping mechanism, there's a detachment, right? Like it's you've kind of
Mhm.
pushed it more into the subconscious. So numbness and kind of feeling empty, things like that can be a sign. Because even though grief and depression, they commonly get mistaken for one another, they're not the same, but you can experience both at the same time. So it's really important
Mhm.
to remember that. And so if that's kind of occurring, it could be a sign that you're just like burned out from it all. And so to answer the other part of what you said of like, okay, so where do we start or what do we do? One, seeking community. I think that that's really important, even if it's just one person that you trust or your therapist or whatever it may be, and then choose some one of the events or one of the experiences that you had that were traumatic to just start with, trying to kind of zoom
Mhm.
in and imagining this journey as like a staircase and trying to focus on that stair in front of you as best you can,
Mhm.
knowing that as you move through those feelings, especially if you just allow yourself to talk about it freely, because that's really really important. Sometimes when people are processing, they're mistakenly worried about being perfect or things coming out perfectly, and that's not how processing actually works. It's kind of like a free writing, right? Or
Mhm.
and it can happen verbally. So the more that you allow yourself to just kind of talk and release, like even if you think you're not making sense, even if you think it's silly, even if you think it's not quite what you're feeling, I promise you that the freer you are in that discussion, the easier it will be to get to the meat of what's happening. So even just
Mhm.
starting with, okay, if you're not sure what you're feeling and why, what happened that day, what happened yesterday, like look, we're going to get to it, we're going to find it, but we just have to meet ourselves where we're at and be gentle and patient, and ideally doing that with someone else, at least as part of the process.
Mhm.
Journaling too can really help because that's another way to process and get things out.
I love that. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for this. This is so informative. All right. So, what is the psychological impact of witnessing loss through social media, and
um,
how can we protect our mental health while still staying informed and engaged?
yeah, this is a real common and important question. Um, so I personally, right, like I really intentionally limit what I take in because part and I recommend that for everybody, right? Because you're right that you need to be informed. But informed does not mean that you need to know every detail of every event that is happening, right? So for instance, you can be aware that um there is like a war going on and loss is happening and people are losing their lives without trying to seek out every single example of that. Understanding the
Mhm.
umbrella of what's going on, that's enough of understanding, right? You don't have to keep seeking, because here's the thing: once you know something, you're now you got to process it. Now you got to deal with it, right? There's no like erase, or oh, like I want to not take that in. If you know it, you now know it. So you just have to be selective and careful. Trying to seek enough knowledge to comprehend what's going on without maybe getting so obsessed with every detailed story and trying to find every little story, because that's just you'll be overloaded, especially in America where our news is very skewed to the negative, very. So
Mhm.
there isn't a lot of balance. There are websites where you can seek out just they're all about positive news. So I often recommend clients go on those websites to just get some balance and know that, like, yes, there are unfortunately horrific things going on in the world, and we do need to be aware, we do need to care, we do need to take action in the ways that we can, but you also need some kind of balance and remember that there are
Mhm.
wonderful things happening and beautiful people doing wonderful things, and it just kind of helps have that balance. So you really have to be selective, take intentional breaks. Please take intentional breaks. And when something does come up, allowing space to process that, because now you have to. I mean, once you know, you
Grace and space.
know. Mm-hmm.
Grace and space.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. So we're
Mm-hmm.
now going into our third segment, and I'm so excited about this too. Um,
I'm excited about the whole thing, y'all. Like, if you haven't seen the practitioners, they are phenomenal, every last one of them. So I hope you're taking full advantage of getting a chance to know them. These beautiful brown and black faces, honey, chef's kiss. All right, so rituals as resistance, practical tools for healing. You advocate for the power of ritual. You advocate for the power of ritual. Why are intentional rituals, both ancient and new,
Mhm.
so critically important for processing grief that feels too big for words?
Mhm. So, because rituals and structure are very grounding, it's a sense of normalcy for you and familiarity amongst chaos. So it can be really helpful to the nervous system to have that, as well as the benefits on the spiritual level and the collective, right? That come from that as well, and the collective part of our connection to one another. So it just helps you. You're trying to like create a heaven through your choices, the relationships you choose, where you go or don't go, the connections you seek or allow yourself to seek. You want to try to create a heaven amongst the chaos and the hell around you because this is your respite. Because think about it this way, the vast majority of the time you are experiencing your life, like the life you have created or built for yourself. So if you happen to make decisions that are allowing for more chaos to enter what is your day to day life, now you have hell in the midst of hell, right? Like, and that's not helping you. So, by making difficult choices and decisions to make changes in the ways that you can, right? Because there are, of course, systemic barriers and other challenges, but using your free will as best you can to try to create a more of a heaven for yourself, this life that you experience most of the time is now your heaven. And so even though you're aware of the chaos that's happening in the world, you're like, but I have healthy relationships and I have people I can turn to and I have hobbies that I enjoy and I have, this the neighborhood that I like to walk in and I have, I have these things that help me recover from the other things. And so that's really an important part of creating a ritual as well, realizing the difference between the world you experience on a regular basis versus the world as a whole that you are a part of.
And that you create with your
Mhm,
mind, because
mhm,
you still
absolutely.
have that
Perspective is
capabilities to
everything.
create that. Yep.
Yes. Mhm.
It's your right as a human being.
Yes.
That's why me and her were on the same page. Don't play with us.
Mhm. Not to snap.
And the lip.
I love that.
All right. Can you share 2 to 3 simple, actionable rituals? And you kind of touched on that just a moment,
Mhm.
that people can do alone or with their families to honor grief and begin to release its weight.
So definitely something around conversation. I feel like that could happen in a multitude of ways. But the first thing that I envisioned when you were saying that is maybe once a week because life is so busy, right? And you just get swept up in your routine. Maybe once a week with your family or your community, however that looks, just intentionally sitting down, preferably in like a circle so everyone can see each other and having a feelings conversation, right? Talking about where you're at on your grief journey and identifying ways that you all can continue to support yourself and each other even amongst the busyness of it, and maybe even having what I like to call the tree remembers but the axe forgets kinds of conversations, which is talking about maybe hurt that has happened amongst even the people who are in that circle that maybe are getting in the way of supporting each other through the grief or whatever it may be. And so the reason why it's called Tree Remember Ask Forgets is because like the person who gets hurt typically remembers the things that were said, all the things that happened the
Verbatim,
best. Yes, because it
receipts.
affected them. The person who did the hurting, sometimes those details can get murky. So by having those honest, open, and productive conversations, because it has to be done in a productive manner, not yelling and cursing and screaming at each other, but really allowing for a safe space, then that allows for some of that connection and healing to occur while you're also moving through the grief. Because we don't want there to be like unresolved or unaddressed issues between the people who are trying to support each other through the grief as much as we can help, because that kind of gets in the way of things. So, yeah.
No, the one thing that I really enjoy that you always say is it's your responsibility to advocate for yourself, right? And I'm
Yes.
paraphrasing it. It's your
Hmm.
responsibility to advocate for yourself, but it is not your responsibility to know the result. Once
Yes.
you state what it
Exactly.
is that you want
Hmm.
and what happened to you, how that person receives it back and how they display it back, that has nothing to do with you. So
Yes.
I want you that kind of fits in that
It
area because
absolutely does. It's a big
yeah.
part of it. So yeah, what NaKeesha's referring to is what I'm often talking about. Like, we have to remember when we're having a conversation. So let's say it's you and one other person, that you only have 50% control because you control yourself. So you have to go into that conversation making sure that you've taken proper time to process your thoughts and emotions so that you've regulated yourself enough to figure out what it is that you need to say, what's going to be a productive part of this conversation. And just express yourself directly, and honestly, but also thoughtfully. We have to communicate in a way that is considerate of the fact that humans have feelings, but we're not trying to communicate in a way that is preventing people from feeling things. That's impossible, right? So like, if I'm going to be telling someone something disappointing, I need to be tailoring the way that I communicate that in with my mindset being considerate of the fact that this probably will make them feel disappointed. I'm not trying to
Mhm,
figure out how do I communicate this and make sure that they don't feel disappointed. That's not how
mhm,
this works. Like, they're going to feel disappointed more than likely. So if you know that, how can you be considerate and still direct in how you communicate that? And then once the words leave your mouth, right, it now goes through their ears, gets processed by their brain, and all of that you have no control over. And how well that gets processed and interpreted depends on a multitude of things: where that person is at in their relationship with themselves and their overall mental health, how much unresolved trauma they have actually addressed so far. Also, just a level of self-awareness, willingness to take accountability. Like, it's so many different things that you don't control, but you want to be able to walk away from that conversation being able to analyze how you showed up and say, like,
mhm,
no, I did my part. I communicated in a way that was considerate, but also honest, and I allowed space for them to respond, and I truly and genuinely tried to understand their perspective. I allowed empathy to enter this space. That's what you have to do for it to be as productive as it can. And if it doesn't go well, it's like, well, okay, I only controlled 50% anyway. So no matter what I do, I was only going to get to 50%.
mhm. I love that. So
Mhm.
that's one. Can
That's
we give
one.
two or three more?
Absolutely. Other ones is
Two
go
more
outside.
examples.
Yeah. Other ones go outside. We are part of the earth. We are part of the
Touch the
universe.
ground.
Go
Touch it
outside, touch the
with your feet.
ground with your
Give the
feet.
truck a
Check
hug
check the grass first, but with your feet. Make
and
sure that
hug
you're
that
not
tree.
hug a tree. I have a big, beautiful black oak tree that like guards my house. It's right in front on the side of the driveway. And I lovingly call that tree Okie, and I talk to it every time I go
I
outside. And
love
I say, hey Okie,
it.
thank you for looking over the house and everything. So like, just interacting with nature, sitting outside, doing meditation, breathing, going on mindful walks. There are actually YouTube videos of, or like audios, I guess, where you listen, and it's a open eye meditation. So it's meant to
Hmm.
guide you in a mindful way as you're walking. So of course, keep your eyes open, right? And it tells you what to like take in your surroundings. So it makes you even more mindful on that walk. So definitely doing things outside, getting some sun and air, and hugging trees and touching grass with your bare feet, please. So yes, that. And then the last one that comes to mind would just be other forms of self-care that take care of the body, right? So being
Mhm.
mindful of the whole mind body soul connection, so that you can do that in a lot of ways: through diet, through exercise. Remember that your stomach is filled with microbiome, which are literally living organisms that you have to feed a variety of foods for them to thrive. Right? And that it affects your brain health, it affects all kinds of your parts of your being. So, like, just taking care of your being in the ways that you can, going out for, going to the gym or eating a balanced diet. And yes, you can have ice cream and a burger and all that stuff, but also know that your body needs greens and fruit and all of that. And I really believe in balance anyway. It's hard to just eat salads all the time, right? Sometimes you want a little piece of bacon, and that's okay. But know that that microbiome is going to benefit from diversity of foods, and then that helps you overall as well. And then getting in touch with whatever or however you practice spirituality, what that looks like for you. But with an open mind. Only reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people's religious and spiritual beliefs are simply their conditioning and not their own discovery of self. So I encourage you to question what you were taught from birth to actually figure out what your actual beliefs are around spirituality. You can only do that by questioning what you were taught from birth, because that's just your conditioning. And then that means that it's not your beliefs, it's your daddy's beliefs and your mama's beliefs and your grandma's beliefs. That's not your beliefs. That's not
Here
your
we
beliefs,
go.
right? So just saying. So if you are resistant to questioning things, you're actually depriving yourself of maybe figuring out what it is you believe when you step outside of your conditioning.
I love that. And
Mhm,
as Dr. Berry is talking about that, she's intertwining and interweaving the idea
mhm.
and the notion that we need mind, body, and soul to be in the same type of interweaving for your healing. And with
Yes.
that being said, I would love to continue to offer the services that we have within Healing in Black. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check out the different tiers of subscription that you can be a part of when you join into the community, and you can get connected to these amazing practitioners. I will not stop
Yes.
singing you guys' praises. Now, as we talk about grief, how can we create grief informed spaces in our workplaces, schools, and churches to
Mm.
better support each other?
I sighed because
Let's
I
do
sighed
it.
because I'm so tired of the work environment.
Mm,
In particular, and religious trauma. I'm tired of that too. But
mm.
I'm just so tired of the work environment because a lot of workspaces are so maladaptive to our human needs.
Mhm,
And people are not given space to be the human being that they are, right? Like, or to have
mhm,
feelings or to cry when they need to, or whatever it may be, as if that's somehow unprofessional. How could it be unprofessional to literally do what is needed for our well being? Make it make sense. I don't understand. If somebody is having a hard day, there should be some kind of support and community in the workspace as well. Like I understand
mhm,
that work needs to get done, but if we look at the history of where this whole 40-hour, let me not go too far, but we look at the history of where this whole
Go
40
there.
hour 40-hour work
Go.
week comes from. It came from people essentially wanting to find a way to enslave you so that they can become rich. Like that's what's
Yeah,
actually going
that's
on.
it.
So, so that's the history there. It's also the only reason why children are expected to go to school for 7, 8 hours. It's
Mhm,
again to be able
mhm,
to enslave the adults so that you can make
mhm,
someone else rich. So, with all that being
mhm,
said, we need to absolutely be revamping these systems that we have created because they
mhm,
need to accommodate for our humanity. We cannot expect people to come to work or any space and not be the full human that they are. And if something happens, like somebody passed away or they had some kind of
mhm,
loss, we should have empathy and understanding, and that should be okay within workspace and every other space. So I think that comes with a lot of education, about the fact that we all have the same structures and parts to our brain, we all have the same hormones at different levels, we all feel, we all grieve, we all of that. And how do we create productivity, right, that also accommodates for our humanity? I think it just starts by us respecting what our humanity is. Like if somebody's having
mhm,
such a hard day, send them home. It's not that hard, and there shouldn't be any kind
mhm,
of penalty for that. Like, because if you give
mhm,
them what they're needing, they'll be able to actually come back and be productive, right? Instead of
mhm.
running them into the ground. So I just think we have a lot of education that still needs to happen before we can really have all of these societal spaces that we've created really accommodate for things like grief,
Mhm.
and just safety for people to be emotional when they need to, of course in a healthy manner. But like if somebody's crying, that's one of the healthiest ways to release emotion, so it's not bothering anybody.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you
I
so
know.
much, Dr. Berry. Ah, we
I
her.
know you understand.
We her. Okay, so we're gonna move a little bit quicker. Well, this is the last 5 minutes that we have.
Okay.
So, because
Okay.
again, she be busy. Okay,
Sometimes.
she be busy. So it's a again, it's an honor and a privilege for you to share your time with us. When it comes down to forming grief or form grief to action, channeling the pain into power, how can we healthily, how can we healthily channel our grief into advocacy and community care without leading it further into burnout or exhaustion?
Oh, well, one aspect of that is definitely like sharing our stories. There's so much
Mhm.
power in vulnerability. And of course, there's a way to go about doing that safely, which we're still not yet in a space of in terms of our progress as humans where it's just safe to be vulnerable with anyone. That's heartbreaking that we're not there yet. But in order for us to get there, people have to we have a lot of generational trauma to heal. We have a lot of emotional
Mhm.
intelligence to learn and empathy to learn. And in the future, like far future, probably, you'll be able to like go outside if you are distressed and just find somebody random on the street and they would support you. That's the kind of world humans need. We're just not quite there yet. So we have to make sure that that is being like considered when it comes to like we do need to share our stories, but like you said, to not burn yourself out or do too much. Checking in with yourself regularly, allowing yourself recovery time, essentially. But in the sharing allows people to feel less alone, and then that's really helping with moving through grief as well, and helping us normalize these emotions so that we can move away from stigma towards, just a world where this is more. It sounds so crazy to say like accepting just what it means to be human, but kind of like, yeah, just accepting what it means to be human. That's what we're
And not a
talking about.
machine.
And
And
not a
not
machine. We are not robots. Mm-mm.
no. Mm-mm. Now, I have a couple more for you. For
Okay.
anyone feeling swallowed up or swallowed by the weight of all of it right now, because we got a lot going on in our community, in our
Yeah.
society, in our world collectively, what is the most important piece of psychological advice that you would give to them?
If they're feeling really swallowed up. So I know everyone's day to day life is just, so different. And a lot of people really don't have a lot of freedom or opportunities for what they truly need, which is like rest and recovery. So if you can't like take a vacation or take some days off from work or whatever it may be, what I would suggest is to try to at least create some kind of plan so that you are working towards the goal of some rest and recovery, whatever that may look like. It could be even in the beginning as simple as taking a little extra time for yourself. Maybe your 10-minute shower is now 15 minutes, maybe you are intentional to once a week to maybe cook one of your favorite meals. Just there's so many ways to fuel ourselves. And obviously, people need breaks. Like that's what we really need in a village. But if you don't have access to that, right off the jump, we can do small day to day things, like tiny little day to day things, 5 minutes extra for ourselves. And then also maybe using the internet or other safely, and other things to maybe find community, because maybe an online community or group, or like you said, a lot of we have meetings that are virtual. So just
Mhm.
things like that to try to connect with people and realizing that it's imperative and that you're worth it, right? Like you deserve care. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, that's a trauma response. And you want to take that discomfort and use it to fuel you and say, what has happened to me? Who did what to me that I am uncomfortable with the idea of people caring for me, right? Like really sitting with that so that you feel rebellious against that feeling and saying, no, I'm going to allow myself to get comfortable with this type of discomfort because my well-being depends on it. So I think
Absolutely.
that that can be a really helpful thing. Just finding small ways and making a plan for a bigger thing that you can do for yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. Now, how can our audience, and I already know one, one way. How can our audience at the Hub Summit find your resources, find you or your resources to continue this healing journey?
Yes. So the easiest way would just be to go to yeah, that's my book. I'm ready to. So on the back of my book, it's all of my website, my and all my socials. Um, but yeah, so my book is a phenomenal resource for healing, growth, and learning the truth about your brain. My book is for all genders. It also has representation for the Black community and people of color, but my readers are of all races. So doesn't matter what your background is, you can learn so much about your humanness in this book. It's about 96% of the book focuses on mental health knowledge that applies to all human beings. We all have the same parts to our brain. So, regardless of how much melanin you have, the stuff in this book applies to you. But then that other 4%, if you happen to be white or non-Black, what it's going to do is increase your social awareness and empathy for the Black community and just people who are having different lived experiences than you in general. And that's important for all of us too, because like we've been talking about, community. So that other 4% still applies to everyone. And if you are Black, that 4% gives you representation. We don't still have a
It
shortage of mental
matters.
health books, you know, that
Mhm.
really take into consideration how our skin color is affecting our lived experiences, which then in turn can affect our overall mental health. And that's just a
Mhm.
statistical and scientific fact at this point that it is affecting people's mental
Mhm.
health. So if you want
Mhm.
to understand that more, that's what the 4% will give you. But the main focus of this book is healing your relationship with yourself. So there's that. But if you just go to my website, that's the easiest thing. So you just go to drabinaberry.com. Hopefully NaKeesha can put it
We'll
somewhere
have
on the
it listed
screen.
down there.
Or okay, drabinaberry.com. All my socials are on there. Links to my book are on there. My website is the hub for everything. So drabinaberry.com. That's how you spell my name. Without the
Right.
dot.
We got it.
Um,
We gonna put
it's
it
gonna be
all
down
on there.
there. Okay.
I
That's
got
all you
the
gotta do. Go there,
Virgo.
everything's there. So
Virgo.
follow me on YouTube, TikTok, all the Facebook, the IG, the
So
threads.
what we're gonna do inside of the hub is we're gonna have a space for all the things that you can get connected to Dr. Berry with.
Perfect.
Okay. She's gonna be posting. All she has to do is take the links from YouTube and put it within our community so you can get her directly versus
Mhm.
going through the algorithm and doing all these things and letting the algorithm tell you when
Sorry.
you can
Yeah.
just go directly to the community and you can find her without
Mhm.
question, right?
Perfect. Mhm.
In the community, you'll also find where she'll have classes, webinars, whatever it is that she wants to invite you to, and how you can get connected to her. She'll have that all within inside of the community. So the community, the hub, is exactly where you need to be. Still follow her on all of her platforms because she needs
Please
the
do.
engagement. It helps her on the bottom line. All of these things are all inclusive in order to empower you and also to continue to empower her to be of service to all of you. With that
Yes.
being said, thank you so much, Dr. Bina, for being here, giving us your love, your joy. Because, y'all, I'm a happy person. I am a happy
You
person.
are a happy person.
I have never met anybody who is happier than me other than her.
Oh,
So
that's sweet.
with that, and that's a compliment, okay? Because
That's
I'm a happy
sweet.
person. But this
Mhm.
woman is happier than me.
I
And
would
if you
say you're
want,
happier than me. So that's crazy. Look,
see,
perception is everything. That's wild.
that part. So if you want all of this good energy, go ahead and get connected to us. Check out the subscriptions that we have available to you. And we are so happy that you took the time to hang out with us as we continue to help you heal. We are your mind people. We're right here for
Mhm.
your
We
brain.
all up in here.
So me and her, this is the
Mhm.
dynamic duo. And you need
Absolutely.
us. You need us in your life. With that being
Mhm.
said, thank you guys for joining us for the Hub Summit for this part of the Hub Summit, meeting with the brain specialist, Dr. Abina